What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, I did want to make a quick update video before the start of the week, but it's okay. Even if you're watching this video and it is Monday, everything I'm going to go over today will in fact pertain to the start of this week because we're seeing something really interesting for Bitcoin that we really haven't seen, and there's a lot of mixed signals right now, right? Because we had the ETF, we went up to 49,000, almost 50,000, right? We had that pullback, as you guys could see right here, and a lot of people are saying that this was the big sell the news event. But again, if we kind of just scribble this area out right here, it really has just been a sideways consolidation pretty much since the end of last year within that range of around, the 40,000 lows to about the 44 to 45,000 highs, right? So is this an issue though? Should we be worried? I'm going to get right into the content today, guys, because I don't want to bore you. And I know there's a lot of people that don't stick around to the end. So I'm actually going to put the TA in the beginning of the video today because I want to show you something very important, but then do stick around to the end because there are a few video clips also that I honestly think are very worth showing to you guys. So let's dive in without any further ado. As you guys can see right here, what we're seeing is that we actually have the S&P, which finally, we had this peak back here in January of last year, and we just eclipsed that high. So you can see right here was the high, and I mean, we're only just barely above it. I mean, it's not really crazy above it, but you can see that we've been in this upwards parallel channel. And the issue is that, the top of this channel is sitting at around 49.51 for the S&P. Now, the thing that we don't really want to see is, for example, a double top like this, because where did we see that the last time? Well, if we go back to the Bitcoin chart, we had this top right here, right? Came all the way back down, came all the way back, and we put in that slightly higher high, but then we continued down, right? So I'm not saying that that's exactly what we're going to end up doing, but it is something that I just want to exercise sort of as a bit of caution. Now, there is something very interesting though, historically, and stick with me because I'm going to show you exactly what I'm looking at. We have seen in the past that when the stock market does in fact put in a new all-time high and it's able to maintain that high and stay above those levels, and this is what we were talking about for weeks, it tends to signal to traditional investors, which, let's be honest, if we do have these ETFs, now we are going to get some of that, traditional money, so you're going to get that traditional mindset coming in. So if they get the vibe that it is a risk-off environment, you will see things like Bitcoin, continue to move to the upside. So, shout out to Platazao. He actually broke this down over on X, and these represent every time that the new all-time high was put in for the stock market, these green lines, and then you can see how Bitcoin reacted. So this is just pure data here. You could see back in 2012. Now, keep in mind, in the majority of the times, you did have the price go up with the exception of here, which I'll get to. But in 2012, you could see we have this. Bitcoin, what does it do? It doesn't immediately move to the upside. It actually consolidates. Look, through March, April, May, into June, and then it starts to move. In 2016, we actually had a sideways market, and then a big crash, and then a recovery, and then, of course, Bitcoin went up to the new all-time highs, etc. 2018 was not a good year in general for Bitcoin. I don't know if you were around for that. 2019, look at this. We pretty much just continued to the upside. 2020, we had sideways, through, we had July, August, so it was September and October, and then around November, we start moving to the upside, and here we are today. So what we can really deduce from looking at this is, in one scenario, it was incredibly bullish, which was the outlier really, because in all other scenarios, basically Bitcoin chopped sideways. Yes, even though we did have this massive 50% sell-off here, in November of 2018, we saw stock market hits highs, sideways consolidation. 2016 highs, a dump, sideways consolidation. This right here, again, consolidation, then a big dump. This 2019, a bit of an outlier, right? Went up, sideways here, and then what are we doing right here? So the big question is, is it actually time to kind of cool off for Bitcoin, right? That was just a bit of a warning. Now, I'm going to show you some stuff on the chart real quick, but what I do want to say is that we're entering a new landscape right now. We're entering into a new paradigm. We don't really know how Bitcoin is actually going to react. I did post over here on X, and if you guys, if you're not getting the updates on YouTube, go follow me on Twitter. That's where I post when I'm not here. I broke down some perspective. So down here, you could see this was exactly when, I know it's a little blurry when I zoom in, but the gold ETF got launched right here on November 4th. And each one of these candles represents a month. So you could see that gold, right, it was going, it was kind of going up slowly, not that fast. And then right here, it actually kind of stopped. So there was this anticipation that was leading up into into the gold ETF, and then gold went sideways for 10 months, and then once it broke out of that range, it created a massive 325% rally. So, you know, what was this area right here? Well, this was a bit of complacency for the average investor, but really what it was a time to buy the dips, right? So again, you know, could Bitcoin just go to 50,000 again? It could try to break out of that range again. The likelihood, though, is based on statistics that we would chop around and even maybe go a little bit lower in that area, right? There are a few things that we need to also discuss, including the fact that we had the DXY, which fell below the parallel channel, but did find support basically at around 100 even, and did bounce back up. So again, that could be adding a little bit to the situation. So talking about the charts really quick, you know, again, I'm not saying that we're going to have a massive crash or a massive insane correction or anything like that, but I am saying that, you know, we still did not close the CME futures gap. I kind of wish we did. We actually touched the very top of it. So, you know, just a simple close, you know, in that area would just be at least minimally Bitcoin retesting around $39,500, right? And as you guys can see right here, if we actually drop this down on the daily, you are starting to notice that on the daily, this is the lower time frame, you could see the money flow getting really excited, and now it looks like it's starting to come, you know, to the downside. Now, if we go back here, you know, having money flow, as you can see right here, you know, get it, you know, coming up here and then coming back down into the red, well, Bitcoin still went up. Bitcoin still went up, but really what it did was, you know, it had this correction, it came up, put in a higher high, and then we actually just kind of went sideways for a very long time before breaking out of that structure again, right? Now, obviously, if I switch this to the weekly, keep in mind, guys, this is a lower time frame daily. If we switch it to the weekly, then everything is looking very good for Bitcoin. It looks like we've only just entered the money flow, and it looks like we are continuing to put in, you know, obviously higher highs and higher lows, but, you know, we still haven't even had a retest of this area right here, or even come back down here and retested this major trend line. Now, why I'm bringing this up is it's not because I'm getting bearish, it's because, let's be honest, really ever since October of last year, Bitcoin has basically just gone up without having any type of a correction. Now, obviously, some people think we're, you know, in this parabolic phase. That's possible. As I showed you right here, we did call this, and I mean, we basically called it to the exact number, and this is not something that we've been talking about recently. We were talking about this, I would say, at least half the year, about how we had this giant you know, falling wedge with a target up here, and our target got hit at the 0.618. So, you know, if you didn't tell me about the news, if I didn't know about the ETF and I was just simply looking at the charts and I didn't know what was going on in the world, this would tell me that Bitcoin is slightly overextended and we need to have a cool off period, right? But the way that I see it is that wherever we land on this final, you know, again, look at this, we haven't even touched any of these, you know, weekly EMAs. So, you know, you have the 21 exponential at around 32,000, and let's be quite honest, guys, that we tend to retrace to this quite often than not. You know, historically, you know, it acts sort of as this bouncing area, and then, you know, unfortunately, it does start to act a little bit as resistance. But, you know, we do have this upwards trend, which shows us around 38. That would close the CME futures gap, and then down here we have 32. Now, obviously, will we go to 32? Well, we might not, because, you know, if we, you know, bounce around here, come down, you know, at that point, these averages are all going to continue moving to the upside, right? So the longer it takes to get down to that level, the less likely we'll go to these lower levels. And again, I'm not looking for, you know, a crash down to $20,000 or $25,000 Bitcoin. I just think that there is the possibility of some sideways accumulation as, you know, these funds, these ETFs get going. We deal with the grayscale GBTC, which I'll get to in a minute. But everything on here is definitely flashing that we are in a bull run. And you can see that whenever we get into these sort of Gaussian channel flips from red to green, we tend to stay in them for a very long time. And we've only just flipped into this, right? But again, even looking at the top of this channel, that's sitting at around 30. So as you can see, that channel can often act as support on the way up and resistance on the way down. Well, if we're looking at the support, you know, again, keep in mind that as time goes by, right, this is going to continue to curve up. This is going to continue to curve up. So the longer we take to come down to these levels, assuming we're going to go down, again, like I said, nobody really knows. I mean, for all I know, the ETFs could just blow the TA out of the water and we just go straight to 100,000. I don't know. This is uncharted territory here, guys. But from a just technical standpoint, it appears as if, you know, we could try to push up again. I could see Bitcoin getting up to 45,000. Maybe we try to take out this 50,000 wick up here. But if we're unable to break and hold above that, then you're probably going to see some sideways accumulation, you know, for Bitcoin. And, you know, again, I'm not trying to be a Bitcoin bear. Guys, listen, if you've been following this channel, we have been bullish when everyone else was bearish, when everyone was calling for, you know, 12,000, 10,000. there were some calls for like $6,000 to $3,000 Bitcoin. And we just said that's absolutely crazy, right? We were bullish during the entire year of 2023. And I will remain bullish for this year, and I still think a new all-time high is possible this year. I just don't really see us doing that before the halving based on what we've seen historically. Now, again, I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. That would be great for my Bitcoin badge, right? But what I am saying is that this could be an opportunity to accumulate that last final dip. So I wouldn't be freaking out. I wouldn't be getting scared. I wouldn't be getting bored and walking away from it if price didn't continue to rocket. Again, I'm going to reiterate, not financial advice. I don't know what these ETFs are going to do imminently, but I do know that it took the gold ETF 10 months before it started to take off, right? We're only just over a week with this ETF, right? So like Darius Dale was over on Anthony Pompliano's channel. I should just got an alert right now. That's the hourly though. Don't worry about that. That's my side trades. So he was talking about how we were in this extremely, sort of bullish area, and maybe now we're pulling back a little bit into the semi sort of neutral expected returns.
The last time we were on, the Wacker weather model was all green skies, all green lights. Stock market signal was bullish, bond market signal was bullish, Bitcoin signal was bullish. This update, or at least going back to an update from last week, we're now seeing more neutral signals in terms of the rolling 3-month outlook for the stock market and the 3-month outlook for Bitcoin. It's not necessarily bearish signal in isolation, but directionally bearish relative to the condition that we were in.
So again, that's not saying that we're expecting like price to go down. Neutral even means that price can actually still go up. It just means that you're probably not going to see these crazy 150%, moves. Maybe not within the next 3 months, right? We had that move already. We need a little bit of a cool off, a little bit of a consolidation, who knows, even a bit of a distribution. But the thing we can point out is that US spot ETF inflows were over 1.2 billion in just the first 4 days. These are astronomical numbers, guys. And yes, of course, we do have the issue with GBTC. They are in fact selling, and this is creating a bit of an issue, right? They were dumping 10,000 Bitcoin basically every day on Coinbase. Now, what is impressive about that is considering how much Bitcoin they were dumping, the fact that Bitcoin is still in the same range, that's actually pretty impressive. Everyone's like, oh, it's not going up. Well, the fact that it's not crashing and they've been offloading 10,000 a day is pretty impressive. Well, a few days, I think they were a little higher than that, right? But, Anthony Scaramucci, he was over on Yahoo and he kind of just broke it down, like explain it to a 5-year-old,
I was talking a lot about the spot Bitcoin ETF last week, which is seen as a real milestone. Do you see it that way? Do you think it's going to be the huge money bringer to Bitcoin that a lot of people are seeing?
Over time it will be, and I think you guys addressed this last week, but it's worth noting. You have lots of investors that went into the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust at 2%. They bought it at the Bitcoin at 50,000, 60,000, 69,000, and so when the ETF became available and they were able to sell the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust and take a loss for tax purposes, and you guys know this, they have to wait 30 days before they can reload. But it's a great arbitrage for these people. They can go from a 2% trust into a 21 basis point ETF, and they have to wait, and there's a lot of churn and a lot of volume churn as a result of that. But I think generally the notion that this is an asset class that's here to stay, people like Abigail Johnson at Fidelity and Larry Fink are working on it at BlackRock. I think is great for the industry.
The other thing to consider is just simply looking at the Bitcoin on exchanges. You could see ever since this point here, Bitcoin has just continued to have less and less and less and less on exchanges. So obviously with the halving coming up, with the ETF starting to go live with the ads and the campaigns and all these things, it's going to get more people aware, more people are going to learn about it, more people are going to be interested. And where are they going to be getting this Bitcoin from? Because not only are we seeing some of the lowest exchange volumes that we've seen, or coins on exchanges since, the last time we were this low was pretty much May of 2018. So, you know what I mean? So this is pretty crazy when you think about the demand with the halving and all the people that are going to be getting into it. And Fred Krueger, he actually kind of broke down a sort of mind-boggling ETF sort of just point on data I wanted to bring to you guys.
What is 640,000 Bitcoin? One way to think of it is 3% now of all Bitcoin that will ever be created is now sitting in these ETFs, and that number is rising. So we have this new number, 3%, that's in all the ETFs. And where are we going to close out this year? I think we're going to close this year out more like 5% of all Bitcoin's going to be in the ETFs, or something like 1 million Bitcoin, which is what David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine thinks. So 3% is nothing to sneeze at, and the share of the non-Bitcoin ETFs, which in just 3 days has hit 0.25%. Which is astounding that 0.25% of kind of the future world money supply. If you believe like me that Bitcoin is the future of money, that is now in ETF. So I think it's just mind-boggling that the ETFs are really taking over the world like this. It's just going to be a flow, increasing flow up, and when you sort of think about it in those terms, that we're at 3% of Bitcoin supplies in ETF, and that number is going to get to 5% by the end of the year. I think there's no reason to be anything less than very, very bullish on Bitcoin and on these ETFs.
So here's the fun part of the video. If you actually stuck around this far, I do believe that regardless of what we see, and again, I'm not saying that we can't see another push. We could push up to 45, 47 again, just to, double tap it, so to speak, make sure, and hey, look, if we can break and hold above that key level, then just forget it. Throw everything I said out the window, and we're probably going to keep going up, right? A lot of it does matter with what's going on in the S&P, the stock, the Dow. I would pay attention to the stock market if the stock market continues to rally. But one thing I wanted to give a shout out to Invest Answers. He broke down all these different, there were all these different predictions, all these different theories, all these different ways of calculating it. And he just kind of broke down the average of where we probably could see Bitcoin's ROI. I don't know if this is just for the all-time high of this cycle or next year, but either way, these numbers should be enough to get you excited in the event that we do get some of these upcoming dips if they do happen.
But the problem is, as the price goes up, also many things change. So having a linear relationship here, I don't think makes much sense, because there will also be more scarcity as more money comes in. And there are people, the hardcore hodlers of Bitcoin, they're not selling till it gets to $1 million, and we're a long way away from that. But it was an interesting case in point. So I took the CoinShares model and created my own little modifier. Now, again, let me walk you through this. So first of all, if we take James Seyfort's potential of $100 million a week, what would that do to price? That would increase Bitcoin price by $140 before April. So I have a thing I call the 21x multiplier in this epoch. That's going to become 42x after April, which is going to be quite stunning. Sorry, my phone was buzzing. Now, 1 year from now, imagine we do 100 million a week per James, and he said that's easy achievable. That's $5.2 billion. That would alone, just the money flows into those funds, would take the price up by 7,200. But there's a difference, because after the halving, the my multiplier goes to 42, which would take the price increase in price up to by 14,500. So it would take us to nearly 60,000 just from the funds, if they continue to just put only 100 million a week. Of course, that's going to increase as there's more education, more awareness, more investment advisors pumping Bitcoin, more advertisement from all the big funds. The money is going to be colossal. So this is, I sandbag a lot, but this is incredibly sandbagged. However, if you imagine all the small little ETPs around the world that have digital assets, currently over 50 billion, I assume conservatively that will double. Okay, going to 100 billion because of the Fidelities and the BlackRocks bringing in an extra 50 billion, which is nothing to them. And I'll explain why it's so nothing. That will bring the price up to 184,000 in that model. So I hope everybody's tracking with me there. Let's say 513% ROI from today. Now remember, that $50 billion you see there, it is only 0.17% of the assets under management from all the asset managers with ETF filings today. 0.1%. People are conservatively assuming half of 1% to 1% will be dropped into this thing. I'm only assuming 0.1%.
Now, again, are we going to go all the way back down to 30,000? Are we going to get that chance? I don't know, because there's a lot of people that kind of want that to happen. A lot of people want Bitcoin to go down to these levels. So, generally when everyone is hoping that Bitcoin price can go down so they can accumulate more, there is a chance that it may get front run, right? So we're looking at a zone between 30 to 32. Maybe it only dips to, I don't know, 36, 35 or something like that, and it gets front run or something like that, right? Now, Samson Mao, of course, he is still claiming that $1 million Bitcoin is possible. This is, of course, his explanation.
You are saying $1 million Bitcoin. What's the logic behind that? Well, like, what? And not only $1 million Bitcoin, which we all know is going to come eventually, but $1 million Bitcoin in a very, very short amount of time.
Right. So I think the key message I'm trying to get across is that the macro environment has fundamentally changed. And then I did some analysis, and other people like Macronaut and BitPain and others have also done the math too. And Bitcoin going up 20x is not a difficult thing. It's done it sometimes in the past. So the key here is that everything is different now with the ETFs, with the amount of money able to flow into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And we can very rapidly go up to 1 million. Whether we stay there or not is a different question, but just the lack of supply, because we are constrained. There's about 1.4, maybe 1.6 million BTC on exchanges right now. That's not a lot. And at some point, it's going to dry up, especially at the rate at which the ETFs are hoovering up all the coins at the moment.
I'm assuming you don't believe in the diminishing returns theory.
Not really. I mean, we talk often about hyper-Bitcoinization. And if you believe in hyper-Bitcoinization, then it's impossible to believe in diminishing returns, because there should be no cycles to Bitcoin. If you're going to reach the point of hyper-Bitcoinization whereby we replace all fiat money, then there is nothing to go back to. So what are you measuring the returns in, right? If the US dollar no longer exists, then how can you have diminishing returns? So I guess there's two parts there. One is, will there be another cycle? And I'm not really sure. Like, just because we had 3 similar looking cycles in the past does not mean that we're always going to have this cycle, right? Because it's like flipping a coin. You get heads 3 times doesn't mean the next time it's more likely you're going to get tails. It's a different equation every single time. And the other part is, well, if Bitcoin does replace fiat, then there is no diminishing returns. You're just Bitcoin now. So it's not really possible to measure returns.
But okay, I think he does this more for just, I think he's come out and said, look, I'm kind of just hyperbole here to get people to think outside the box, to think about how these multipliers could work. But, if you just look at what the Franklin Templeton CEO was saying, she was talking about Bitcoin and the ETFs and all this other stuff, but she goes on to talk about what really sold her on the idea of Bitcoin. And this, getting back to Samson Mao's idea of hyper-Bitcoinization, really is what I believe to be also a key factor that will continue to drive adoption globally.
One of the things that made me a believer is, as I went around the world talking to people who would tell you, I had somebody who said, I keep 50% of my savings in Bitcoin because if I say the wrong thing in my country, I could have my assets confiscated. I remember talking to somebody in Israel who said, my parents and their parents had all of their assets confiscated. They keep a portion of it in Bitcoin. So there's a fear component to it that is considered almost a insurance or safety component. But I also think it's really important to fueling what is a next real opportunity in this blockchain world.
So again, if I could just summarize what we're looking at right here, and this, again, if you're watching on Monday, this is still applicable. We have to keep our eyes on what is going on in the stock market. If the stock markets continue to put in, not every stock is doing well, of course. Which one was it? Spirit Airlines. Oh my goodness, you see that chart? Woo, I don't even want to pull that one up. Sorry if any of you are holding that. But ultimately what I'm seeing personally, I'm neutral right now. I don't even want to say I'm bearish, because I'm really neutral until we break below this $40,000 area. If we break below that 40,000 and it acts as resistance, then I'm going to go into a short-term bearish perspective. But again, when I say bearish, what I mean is excellent opportunity for accumulation, because I am mid to long-term bullish on Bitcoin. I think the halving is going to, really bring in that effect, and we tend to see it takes a few months after the halving to really see that effect take place. The ETFs are the outlier. They're the new guys on the block, right? I don't know how that's going to affect it, but just looking at traditional, just normal, what we've been doing on the channel for the past 7 years, just looking at the TA, it is suggesting that maybe we should exercise a bit of caution at this moment, right? Now, if we are able to break and hold above that $50,000 area, mostly, I mean, I would say hold for at least a week, then the bearish thesis will be out right now. So ultimately neutral, you know, falling below 40K, bearish, then we're looking at those lower targets, and then I think we're doing the sideways chop accumulation, right? So that's kind of where we're at right now. But the main takeaway that I want you to take away from this video is it is not a overall bearish sentiment. It's neutral right now to potentially bearish, maybe. But if we do get some of those lower levels, I firmly believe that that will be the last time you will ever be able to buy Bitcoin ever in your life, ever at those levels again. So any dips, in my opinion, not financial advice, that we see, if we even see any major dips, we might not, who knows, maybe tomorrow Bitcoin just goes to 50K again and goes to the moon, I don't know. But if we do enter what I think we're gonna do based on history, this is a generational opportunity. And if you were if you were hesitant, you were sitting outside of the market, you didn't scoop up any Bitcoin when it was at those levels, I think this would be the last opportunity. Because once we break back above that range, I just don't see how we're going back down there again, right? And one other thing I wanted to end on real quick was, I don't know if you saw this, but Trump, and you know, not taking political sides here, but he did say that if elected, he would not allow a CBDC.
Tonight, I'm also making another promise to protect Americans from government tyranny. As your president, I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. Do you know about that?
So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you enjoyed this random update. It's still, you know, obviously long video, but not as long for our videos. Our videos can get up to 40 minutes long sometimes. But I did want to just let you guys know, CoinCatch right now, these are one of the main two exchanges that I'm using. I'm using this and I'm using Levex. And CoinCatch, they obviously, you know, they're very friendly with KYC and withdrawals, and they are doing a bunch of promotions right now. Like literally there's a lot going on right now. I don't even have time to go over it. So check that out if you're interested. Use the link below if you want to get those extra bonus deposits, as well as Levex. You know, create the account, click the link, it'll say you're invited by Crypto Zombie, and you will get any trade matched up to $5,000. It's basically free money. You can trade it. If you win, you get to keep it. If you lose it, wasn't your money anyway, right? So that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. If you are interested, there's also Apex, decentralized exchange. If you don't trust centralized exchanges, I don't blame you. I mean, you know, also anything I talk about on this channel, you know, I've done my best. We've been lucky. We've never promoted anything, unfortunately, you know, luckily for us. But hey, you know, just be careful. If you're not actively trading coins off the exchange, you know the drill, guys. Until next time, stay crypto. I love you. And of course, peace out.